What is up, 6th grade? I'm excited to hang out with you today. I hope you are excited too. My name is Tony and I'm a youth intern here at the Forney campus. Well, usually we play a game, but I super love dancing. So today I'm going to teach you a TikTok dance that I learned, and hopefully you guys can learn too. So it's a pretty fast dance, so we're going to start off a little slow. So the music's going to play, and then we're going to take your right hand, left hand, over, shoulder, shoulder, head, front hip, back hip. Play your drums, you're gonna throw it up, and then you're gonna whoa at the end. We're gonna do one more time for everybody. So we're gonna go hand, over, shoulder, head, front hip, back hip, drums, hold, and you're gonna whoa. All right, now we're gonna try it fast, so I hope you're ready. Touch this. Touch this. Man, that was so much fun. I hope that you had a lot of fun learning that dance. But now it's time to take a seat, sit down, maybe grab a drink and your Bible and get ready to listen. Let's watch this video together. Gene, whenever you're ready.
Oh, that one was a good one.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm Jean, and this week we're talking all about influence. Influence is the ability to have an effect on someone else, specifically the ability to affect things like their behaviors, thoughts, or choices. When you have influence over someone, it means you have the potential to change something about who they are, what they think, or how they live their lives. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear the word influence, the first thing that comes to mind is like when one person yawns and everyone else has to yawn too. Or your friend starts wearing their hair a certain way, and so everyone else starts doing it too. I'm the new trend. But it's not always positive. In fact, sometimes it's just a long list of things my parents, teachers, and coaches told me when I was your age. Don't hang out with that kid because he's a bad influence. You can't watch that show because it's a bad influence on you. Your friends should be people who have good influence on you. Your little brother and sister, they're looking up to you, so be a good influence on them. You better be a good influence on the people around you. Sound familiar? Maybe the adults in your life are telling you a few of the same things right now. Think about this for a second. When you hear the word influence, it can be easy to automatically put the word bad in front of it. I think that's because we're so much more familiar with the idea of bad influence than we are with good. Maybe that's because the adults in your life are a lot like the ones in mine when I was in middle school. Your parents, teachers, coaches, and maybe even your small group leaders are always telling you about bad influence. They're telling you not to be a bad influence, not to be the kinds of friends or teammates or significant others who lead someone towards things that aren't good for them. Don't encourage your friends to break rules or lie to your parents or cheat on that test. In other words, don't be a bad influence on the people in your life. Or they're telling you not to hang out with people who are bad influences on you, people who will lead you towards things that aren't good for you. Avoid that kid who parties too hard, or that girl who gossips all the time, or the kid who got suspended last week. Don't let the way they act or the choices they make influence the way you act or the choices you make. The adults in your life aren't saying all this stuff about bad influences because they're mean or strict or want to kill all the fun out of your life. Believe it or not, they're saying it because they love you. They want to protect you from the people or things that might influence your life away from God's best for you. They want to help you become the best version of yourself. And they recognize that the people around you have a lot to do with it. But can we just be honest for a second? Sometimes the thought of being a good influence feels like a lot of responsibility, right? Like you have to do all the right things and make all the right choices and have all the right answers all the time. Nobody can do that. And trying to sounds really exhausting. Also, the idea of only hanging out with people who influence you in a positive way doesn't always sound like that much fun either. Maybe they don't go along with what the crowd is doing. Or they always follow the rules, or they go against what's popular. That doesn't always seem like a great time, does it? When we think about influence in these ways, we're missing the whole picture. It makes it seem like the kind of influence you have is based only on your behaviors and choices. Like if you make good decisions, you have good influence. But if you make bad choices, you suddenly become a bad influence. While our choices and behaviors do have a lot to do with our influence, I think there's a whole lot more to this influence thing than we may realize. There's a cool picture in the Bible of what I think influence is really all about, and I want us to look at it together today. It's from the book of Acts, which was written about the spread of Christianity and the start of the church after Jesus came to earth. The guys who were leading this movement of Christianity weren't the most popular people on the planet. They weren't famous or super cool or known for having the most followers on their early church TikTok accounts. Can you imagine if they had their own dance moves? I don't know, and it became a hashtag trend on TikTok? How interesting would that be? No, they were just a group of people who believed in Jesus, began to follow his teachings, and wanted to share those teachings with others. These guys were known as apostles, which is just another way to say that they were leaders and teachers spreading the movement of Christianity. One of these guys, named Peter, was actually called by Jesus himself to be one of the leaders who would help start his church. Now here's what's interesting about that. Peter wasn't always the best decision maker. In fact, Peter made a lot of bad choices during the time he spent with Jesus. He had a tendency to be angry, cowardly, and even a liar at times. Still, this is one of the guys Jesus chose to help spread his message to the people around him. Here's what I think is so cool about that. Jesus knew that Peter's ability to influence others wasn't just about his behavior or choices. It was about God working in him. Peter had influence not because of anything he did or didn't do, but because God gave it to him. God gave him the influence he needed to be part of leading the growing church. All Peter had to do was say yes to it, one step at a time. And that's exactly what he did. Look what happened because of it. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, and to sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over them all, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. And all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together at the temple each day, met in homes for the Lord's Supper, and shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. Today, we know this passage describes the first picture of the Christian church. But back then, I don't know if the guys who were part of it knew what they were building. Peter and his community were simply using the influence they had. They were influencing the people around them to do what Jesus had called them to do. Love God and love each other. They weren't saying yes to being good influences. Instead, they were saying yes to using their God-given influence for good, one small step at a time. Were they the most popular guys? Probably not. Did they see the results right away? Nope. Did they get the credit they deserved for the good that they were doing? Not always. But still they kept going. They used their influence for good, for God. That gave them the motivation to take small steps in the right direction. And those steps impacted and influenced the people around them to do the same. That's what I want you to see today. Doing big things start with small steps. Your ability to influence others isn't about whether your behavior is always good or bad. It isn't about getting it right all the time. It's about saying yes to using that influence you do have, the influence God has given you for good. The best way to do that is one small step at a time. Peter and his pals who started the early church wanted to see those around them come to know and believe in Jesus. They didn't have all the influence in the world to make this happen quickly. In fact, they probably never imagined just how big their influence would one day be. But they kept going, one step at a time, to eventually see this movement of God spread. And those small steps started a movement that shaped their entire community. But by themselves, they don't sound all that influential. Here's what they did. Step 1, they studied the apostles' teaching and spent time with each other. Step 2, They let God work through them and were amazed by all that God did. Step 3, they found common ground with others. Step 4, they gave to those who were in need, no matter the cost. Step 5, they shared meals together at home and genuinely enjoyed each other's company. And step 6, they praised God together. As a result of all of those things, God grew their church every day. Each one of these small steps inched this group closer and closer to having big influence. Each step may have seemed small and insignificant when it was taken, but it moved them in big ways towards big influence. And the same can be true for you. You can take small steps every single day to inch you closer and closer towards using your influence for good. Doing big things starts with small steps. Your ability to influence others starts with small steps in the right direction. The more steps you take towards being a positive influence, the more impact your influence will make for good over time. When I was in school, I had a friend named Cindy, and she would invite me to church like every week. And every week I would tell her no, that I did not want to go to church with her. But there was just something different about Cindy. She was always so joyful. Everyone just seemed to want to be around her. And honestly, she always showed up in my life when things got really hard. She helped me through some different situations and was always willing to just listen and hear what I had to say. And eventually she asked me one week if I wanted to go to church with her, and I eventually said yes, and it changed my life forever. That ability to influence me didn't happen overnight. It was Cindy's day-to-day behaviors that grew her influence in my life. It didn't come as a result of only making the right decisions or having the best behavior all the time. And it definitely didn't come from being the most popular person in the room. No, that influence came from small steps every single day towards being the kind of person who can make a big impact. And the same can be true for you. I think you can become the kind of person who influences people for good. I think you have the potential to have a big influence. You just have to start taking some small steps to get there. So here's what I want you to try. Think about how and in what way you want to influence others. If you want to be someone who influences others to serve, then take a small step to serve someone in your community. Maybe by mowing a neighbor's lawn or offering to babysit for free. If you want to be someone who influences others to be kind or friendly, take one small step to do the same. Maybe invite a new kid to hang out with you after school or shoot an encouraging text to a friend this week. If you want to be someone who influences others to be generous or help those in need, then take a small step to being and doing those things yourself. Remember, doing big things starts with small steps. Now maybe you're sitting there thinking, I know you're saying influence isn't about my bad choices or behaviors, but I think I've already made too many mistakes to ever have the kind of influence you're talking about. It's never too late to start taking those small steps in the direction of better influence. Maybe even today, a small step you could take is to talk to your small group leader about the very thing you feel is holding you back from having influence. No matter who you are or what your story is, I believe you have the potential to have big influence in a great way. As you head out, think about this question. What's one way I want to influence the people around me?
That was great. I don't know about you, but this series has been really impactful for me. Influence starts with something so small. So if you want to do something big, you have to start with something small. That means if you want to be a positive influence in the lives of your friends, you can start by being kind to someone who isn't treated so nicely, or don't watch movies that have compromising scenes. Yeah, I think you get the idea. Let's be the influencers, not the influence. But I have a couple of questions for you guys that I would love for you to discuss with your families and friends. First question, what is one thing you think might influence someone your age? All right, second question, what is the difference between a positive and negative influence? All right, third question, do you think it is easier to be a good influence or a bad influence? And our last question is, what is one small step you can take toward being a positive influence? Those are some great questions that will have some great discussion. Make sure to be a positive influence this week. If you have made a decision to follow Jesus, want to talk more about baptism, maybe need some prayer, or just simply have some questions about being an influencer or growing in faith, please text KidsMin to 888-111 so that we here can follow up with you. Thank you guys for watching us today, and see you next week.